Your Humanities Half Hour is brought to you by the Northern Marianas Humanities Council, navigating the human experience together.
Hafide Tiro, and welcome to Your Humanities Half Hour. I'm Catherine Perry, and our guest today is one of the best-known modern Indigenous Chamorro weavers in the Marianas, James Bamba. James, buenas and welcome.
Oh, Hafide, Catherine, thank you for having me. That was a very interesting and amazing introduction. Thank you.
Well, I only say that because whenever I'm around people and we start talking about who are the Chamorro weavers of coconut and pandanus, your name comes up.
Oh, well, okay.
How long have you been weaving and how did you get started?
So I started in 1995, so it'll be almost coming up on 30 years that I've been weaving coconut leaves, hagunitsuk, and pandanus leaves, or agak. And I started because my family, I wasn't aware at the time that my family did these things, and so there was an event in our family that occurred, and my uncle had brought like a gift basket for my grandmother as like a get well present, and it was filled with fruits and vegetables, you know, just something nice to bring. And I saw it and I asked where he got it, and it was explained to me that he made it, and I was very unaware at that age of around 15 years old that we did those things. We saw it at school when the manamko, well, my uncle was old, but not that old. The manamko would come to the school during like Chamorro Day festivities and
Right.
Show their stuff and be weaving. And I thought that that was just something that only like a couple people knew, or like really old people knew. But actually, my uncles and aunts knew these things, and my grandparents also knew some stuff about it. And from there, I was hooked. And here I am, almost 30 years later, still doing these things.
Could you share with us a little bit about what actually goes into weaving coconut and pandanus leaves?
Well, the two are a little bit different in terms of processes. With coconut leaf weaving, you first find the coconut tree and you look and examine it and see if it has the right materials for your project. So if you're going to weave a really large fishing basket, you need really long leaves, and if you're going to weave just little ornaments or toys, you don't necessarily need that. Hats as well, you need that more substantial material, longer leaves and a certain width and everything. And once you get really proficient, you can see it and then know that this is the tree you're going to pick from. And then from there, you harvest the leaves, prepare the material for the particular project you're going to do, and then you weave it. And there's not much in the way of processing, other than maybe you'll tala the leaves in the sun, place them in the sun to wilt them a little to make them more pliable, so that the stick of the leaf, the nuhut, won't break while weaving. That's usually a problem when you first pick it. They're very, they're not soft and pliable. They're really stiff.
Mm-hmm. Because of the spine on the leaf?
Yes.
Okay.
In English they call midrib, the stick that is on the leaf. And so that's like one step. There's other things too that we do in modern times, like after you weave something, you can put it in your freezer and then it'll turn it brown faster and it'll prevent shrinking. That's like a technological advancement with weaving that some weaver figured out. And I've known about it since the 90s. So somebody in the 80s or 90s put a basket in a freezer and took it out and noticed that it had a different effect on it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's coconut leaves. It's pretty straightforward and can be done in one sitting. And with pandanus leaves, or what we call aggak, it's a particular type of pandanus tree that's different than what you find in the jungle, and it's only male. So pandanus trees they have male trees and female trees, and so aggak is a cultivar of pandanus that has been in the Marianas for thousands of years. It was noted down by the Spaniards when they first came here. They wrote about this plant that they used for weaving, and the leaves were very strong. And actually, it's famous around Micronesia as well. Many of the other islanders recognize what aggak is, and they they seek it out. If they see it in the Marianas, they will either harvest it if they find a tree, or they will buy the complete rolls. And actually, I had learned from one of my friends whose wife is from one of the outer islands in the FSM. They call it mangi luta.
Oh,
which mangi means like the roll of pandanus leaves, or pandanus leaves in general.
Oh.
I might be mispronouncing the words because I don't speak her dialect.
Okay.
But and luta in reference to the island of Luta, because I assume at that time they were one of the major producers of this material and exporting it, because we even used to export it to Guam. And I heard that they would export it up to Saipan too, these rolls of pandanus leaves. But getting back to the pandanus processing, you have to take the leaves from the tree, whether it's your tree or somebody else's tree. You have to harvest the leaves at a certain time, and you have to remove the thorns from the edges and the midrib. Then you have to clean the leaves and then flatten them. And then once you flatten them around your hands, you have to dry them in the sun. And then after you dry them in the sun for like a week or 2 or 3, depending on how much sun we're getting, then you put them in these large rolls, which we call rozu aggak. And then from there, you have to let it rest and stretch, because the leaves are not flat when you get them from the tree. They have this winged shape that looks like a M if you look at a cross section. And then when you roll them, it flattens it. But that's not enough, because when you unroll them, they're very wavy. So you have to roll them in these tight rolls, and it stretches the leaf. And then once you take them out after that period, they actually lay pretty flat. And then from there, you must strip them into even width strips, and then weave them together. And it's more technical than coconut leaf weaving, and more labor intensive than coconut leaf weaving. So I think it's much more labor intensive than coconut leaf weaving.
Describing all these processes, how much of this did you learn from your family originally, and how much have you picked up or learned from other people along the way?
So processing, I kind of left out one step with the processing, but actually one of the first few steps, if you don't own a tree, is to propagate the plant, right? And so from my family, I learned how to propagate the plant.
Grow the plant,
yes,
basically.
Grow the plant. And because I mentioned they were male, the trees were male, you have to take a cutting. And this is like indigenous ecological knowledge that has been passed down intergenerationally in families for thousands of years. This is not something that we learned on YouTube and we're like, oh man, we can
do that.
We can plant a tree from the branch, right?
Yeah.
That's not what happened. And I think that's important to note, that there was this old man in my family, my mom's father, who was born in 1912, who said, boy, go out and just cut the branch. What seeds are you looking for? Because I thought, in my head as a young man in the 90s, oh, I need to find seeds at the store or somewhere and get the seeds off the ground and plant it. And he was confused why I was so adamant about finding a seed, and so he explained it to me, and that's how I started with pandanus weaving, or weaving aggak. Is I had to go get the plant first.
How many years until it reaches maturity and you can start harvesting?
You can actually start harvesting right away, but the tree will have very short leaves. And in order to weave large guafak or sleeping mats or large baskets or purses, you need longer leaves. And so it takes between 2.5 to 3 years to get medium-sized leaves, which are about 4 feet long, the usable portion. But one of my good friends here on Saipan has really good hands, and he plants agek trees. I know that you've had several typhoons here, but he's replaced his trees, and it doesn't take him long. Si Senor Donald Mignola, I was just visiting with him very recently, and I saw his agek trees that he planted, and I was a little hosquan because I was a little jealous because his were huge already, and mine that I planted on Rhoda were still only medium large, but his was extra large already, the tree. And I said,
it's either the hands or the soil, I'm sure.
It must be the soil. I used bad soil. But yeah. So then my grandparents explained that aspect to me, planting. And then I was able to get leaves from the tree that I had taken the cutting from, and which was a friend of our family's, and I brought it home and they explained how to clean it. And so it was interesting because they showed me a technique where you remove the thorns and then you roll them around your hands a particular way, and then you reverse it and it massages the leaves. And I haven't seen many modern weavers doing that.
Reverse.
Oh, well, just doing this method. And I held a workshop, and I didn't realize that there may have been some people in the workshop that already had some understanding of weaving agek. So we were preparing the leaves, and I was telling the students to just roll it around your hand and then massage it a little and then straighten it out and do it again. And there was 2 manamko in the class, and they were following along, but I guess the memories kicked in, and I saw them doing this thing where you hold the 2 ends of the leaf and then you roll them around your hands, and then you switch and then you roll it this way. And it's a very particular movement, and it's nothing special, I should say. It is just more efficient because you're massaging both ends of the leaf at the same time. You're basically doing around each hand this movement, so you're doing both halves at the same time, basically. And I saw it and I said, Sainao, where did you learn that? And he goes, oh, this is what we did when we were little. And I know this part. And I go, oh, so you just don't know how to weave something. She goes, oh no, we didn't learn that. But we had to sit at my grandma's house and roll these leaves around our hands like this. And I go, oh my God, I haven't seen that in like a long time. And she goes, you don't do that? I said, oh yes, I do that, but I haven't seen anyone else do it in a long time. And so that might not be amazing for some manamko that hear this story, but for me, seeing my grandparents do it and teaching me that, but then me doing it and never seeing anyone else do it, it was kind of amazing to see somebody out of the blue.
Sort of validation and camaraderie. Like, this is the way we do it. We have some of your pieces here on the set. This one is pandanus. Could I ask you to really tell us the story of this piece, if you remember, or how many hours do you think went into making that?
Well,
from the heart, not counting the tree growing.
Okay, yes. Okay, so if we've already prepared all the materials and they're being stored on my shelf and I want to weave a basket just like this, I would take the roll down. And this basket probably took me maybe a couple of hours at the most. Because it's
That's assuming you already have the strips.
No. From taking the leaves off the rolls to splitting them, there's a very special tool we use.
You are good.
No, well,
yes.
Thank you. First, I'll thank you, and then second, I will say, I think many things are, if you're not intimately involved with a certain craft or something, it seems like it's amazing. And I am amazed that we figured out how to take leaves from a tree and understood how to turn them into strips. Like that is amazing. It still blows my mind that we have this. This is what we have, and this is what we do. But this particular basket is only 1 layer thick. And so it only requires a certain amount of leaves, and then they're woven into this grid, and then we weave the sides up, and then we twist the leaves back into themselves, and then it's finished. That's it. But then there are some weavings that are 2 layers thick.
Right.
And
Purses,
yes,
especially.
purses, and then they have these very intricate sewing around the edges to reinforce them, and then they have handles inserted.
Did you learn this from your family, or is this more of a modern?
So certain items I have learned from my family specifically.
Yes.
This is called kotut, and
Kotut.
kotut is a pandanus basket.
Okay.
And then
It's really beautiful, actually.
Thank you. And then each type of weaving has most of them have their own unique name. So kotut is usually open like this. And then there's some cases with straps, we call balakbak. And then there's one with a drawstring we call kosta tengweng, or kotut tengweng, depending on who you ask. And so this particular, because it's so small and it's only 1 layer thick, and the edge is not sewn with pandanus leaf, not with like ribbon or anything, pandanus leaf, this takes less time. If like a woven hat, like an ugnek hat, would take much longer, because it's one, it would be a lot larger, because not only do you have this the basket part that would sit on your head, or which is the crown of the hat, but also the brim. Which is like weaving a guafek. And generally the woven hats are much finer than these work baskets, which this is like a 1/2 inch, but then hats are usually like 1/8 or 1/16 of an inch wide. And so this would take maybe a couple hours.
Amazing. I understand also that you are pretty much recognized by the University of Guam as an expert. And what is your official title in that capacity? And what does it mean?
So several years back, the University of Guam was introducing special studies courses at the higher levels, not introduction classes, but like 300 level courses in the Chamorro Studies division, and then also for Micronesian Studies students as well, I believe. And one year they had asked me if I would teach, and so they had hired me as like a contractor, and then one of the professors in the, I believe it's a School of Humanities and Social Scientists, was the instructor of record. Like he would technically conduct the class, and then I would be like the guest instructor or something. And then the next year rolled around, and I had asked, oh, do you think you would be doing this Tinifuk Chamorro class, like Chamorro weaving class? And they were like, yes. Just wait a little bit. We're still working out some of these things, and I'm not 100% certain the impetus for them doing this thing and then the processes that they went through. But basically, I was the instructor of record this year, and this was in 2017 when they had brought me on as the as a vetted Indigenous cultural practitioner. I think that's the title. I wish it's on a paper somewhere, and that was an honor for me, because generally in Western academia, if you don't have a degree, I mean, there is no Chamorro basket weaving degree, right? There's no master's degree in Chamorro basket weaving or Pacific basket weaving that I'm aware of, but they had given me that. I felt honored that the community and these personnel or the faculty there went through the trouble to make it so that a person who is an expert, or well, I'm not tooting my own horn.
Right.
I'm not
Understood.
I'm not sounding my own kulu, but they went through the trouble of trying to find a way in the Western academic system or structure to say, no, this individual knows weaving. This individual knows traditional medicine. This individual knows traditional canoe making and navigation. We should make them the instructor because they are the subject matter experts. Yeah. So that was, I was able to teach for 2 years, and then I somehow ended up in the Sinamay, in Luta. Yeah.
Well, not only that, but I understand you've kind of gone worldwide, which is so beautiful with your knowledge. Can we talk about that after our break?
Yes.
All right. We'll be back with more after this break.
Hafaday, Zantiro. I'm Leo Pangilinan with the Northern Marianas Humanities Council. We'd like to take a moment to thank our generous sponsors who have made possible the many programs in our community like this show. We couldn't have done it without them. And if you value the work we do and would like to make a contribution to our efforts, we ask that you consider making an in-kind or cash contribution to the Northern Marianas Humanities Council. Any amount is appreciated, and donations of up to $5,000 qualify for an educational tax credit. We appreciate your partnership and support. Sidus Maasi, Olomai, and thank you.
Welcome back to Your Humanities Half Hour. We're chatting with Indigenous Chamorro weaver James Bamba. James, you were actually invited to Spain to, I guess, kind of evaluate what they've written about Chamorro weaving. That's pretty amazing. In addition to the fact that you say that you also kind of study or observe or learn from weavers worldwide. How beautiful that you're taking this traditional knowledge around the world.
So yes, I did go to Spain for approximately 2 weeks, and in the Spanish museums, they have items from the Marianas, weaving particularly of what was of interest for me. And this research team from Spain, they were in Luta for a spell doing research and working with the Sinamay government, and they had found out about what my knowledge, right, and what I knew about weaving, and they came up with a plan to bring me to Spain to look at what they had in their collections from the Marianas and in their anthropology museum, the Spanish anthropology museum, and I went there and I saw all these artifacts. Well, not artifacts. These woven items from artisans in the 1800s, which it's a very rare treat to see anything from the 90s or 80s or 70s.
That's what you call preservation.
Yes, and that's over 100 years of this knowledge that was sitting in the back room somewhere. And the only reason why I was aware of those things in the first place was they had this exhibition at the 500-year anniversary of when we were discovered, even though we already knew we were here.
When somebody else discovered us.
Or when they became knowledgeable about our existence, yes. I suppose. So yes. I had heard that there were weavings there, but they weren't bringing it to the Marianas. You had to go to Spain. So I think the government sent delegation there to go look at it, but we didn't see it. And so that was a great opportunity. I went and I saw these things, and I assisted their researchers with correcting some of the mistakes in their records because they were calling something coconut leaves, and it was actually aggak. It wasn't hagunitsuk, it was aggak. And then they had some things listed as being from the Marianas that were actually probably made here, but made by someone from a different island because that style of weaving wasn't Chamorro. And I'm not saying that Chamorros cannot invent new things, but that particular style of purse is mostly like a Pohnpeian design. And it was very beautiful.
And yeah, you can kind of tell that even today, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to mention, I'm not sure if you've heard of this, but I heard from Cecilio Raikilpi, a traditional navigator, that back in the day when they made canoe sails in the outer islands of Yap from pandanus, the pandanus from Rota was known as the best.
Yes, and that's what I had mentioned earlier about Mangiluta.
Yes.
Is that our pandanus is well known throughout, at least Micronesia,
Region, yeah.
about its tensile strength, how strong it is under pressure, and that it turns white without bleaching. You don't have to boil it and then put it in the sun. Like harvesting it from the tree will produce a very light color, which is desirable. I don't know
It's
why.
pretty.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I actually have a leaf that I picked in Saipan in my bag here, and I could show it to you if you'd like.
Sure.
Yeah. This I didn't do anything. I just picked it. I already processed it. It's a very small tree. Somebody planted it at a park, and I saw it, and I immediately recognized that it was agek. And so I took the thorns off already. Unfortunately, I can't demonstrate. But this leaf is like this really light beige color. We call it white.
Hold it up a little bit higher.
Oh, yeah. And so compare.
It's almost like birch.
Yeah,
Birch
and
bark.
I just picked it because I saw it, and I don't have any agek from Saipan, but I was like, oh, that's an agek leaf.
It is very beautiful.
Yeah, and so I'll just weave something later with it, but.
I know one of the things you've mentioned, and I want to show some of your more contemporary designs while we're chatting, we were chatting before the show about the values, the cultural values that are contained in the making of these items. It's more than just something to sell or something to give away or something to exhibit. To you, what is the significance of being able to do this? And most importantly, perpetuating it for the next generation. I mean, even modern items like these earrings. And you have a really great cup holder around here someplace.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, the little can cooler
yes.
thing.
Why? Why should people other than James Bamba and Senor Donald Mendiola be investing the time and effort in learning and doing things like this?
Well, I think, that was a very broad and deep question. And
Sorry.
No, I appreciate it because I think it allows this platform to speak about this important things like this. And so the long and short of it is, it's what we have. It's I guinahata. This is our treasure, our ours. And the fact that our ancestors knew how to grow these plants, which are only male, right? It's not like a seed you can pick up off the ground. And then they knew how to do that or figured it out. Or they brought it with them from wherever they came from to these islands, or they found it here and then they said, this is a good tree. So not only that, the intergenerational transmission of knowledge and the transmission of indigenous ecological knowledge, what we call now, but also that in the past, this is not what it is today. Agek weaving today is one man, one woman, picking leaves, in the Marianas anyways, processing themselves, generally speaking,
By themselves.
or buying rolls imported from the Marshalls, or buying imported rolls to Guam from Luta, and that come from my house, and I send it to Rota, or from Rota to Guam, and then weaving. That's what it is. What it was there was a biha or a bihu or an amko in the household who had maybe couldn't lift heavy things or do these things, and they focused their efforts on supporting the family through creating these necessary objects. Weaving, guafek for sleeping, guafek for drying copra, drying this in the sun, all these things, and baskets for holding fish. And the family would gather to process materials, just like putting up a roof on a home, or now today a hut, right? Everybody comes together to assist. And so when my grandparents were growing up, and their grandmother would weave the mats for sleeping because there were no beds. It wasn't common. And all the kids would come and help roll and soften the leaves or clean them, wipe them clean with the rag and all these things. And it was a family endeavor for the benefit of the family and the advancement of the family in that way. So, because somebody else was fishing, somebody else was farming, somebody else was, doing these other things with animal husbandry, raising the chickens, the pigs, right? Or tending to the carabao at the river because it needed to drink. And so now it's changed. Now it's, Joe Cruz weaving a basket, or James Bamba weaving a guafai, or this person here just picking their leaves, weaving their basket. And so there's a shift in how it's done. And I think that is why it's important to continue it, is not only so that we can say, oh, we weave really cool things, yeah, but also because once this is gone, it is gone. We can record all the videos we want and YouTube how-to videos, right, how to do it, but it's a little different when you have to have somebody else teach you from the outside. This is one of the skills, just like traditional fishing and farming, that hasn't been interrupted by colonization, invasion, and genocide, and political barbarias. It's something that survived the times, even till 2024, right? There's still people weaving baskets, pandanus too. But there wasn't anyone practicing inter-island navigation, right? And across the ocean. And there was nobody that's doing laddystone carving anymore, right? And very few people were doing canoe carving. There were several canoe carvers within the Marianas Islands, including Guam, who still knew how, and then people were able to learn from them. But that almost disappeared too. Nobody grows rice anymore, traditionally, right? There's a lot of our traditional knowledge that has disappeared. And some people are trying to grow rice again. I heard somebody here is trying, and Guam is trying, importing seeds and trying to grow. But if it ends, there's a difference between something that's been passed down generation to generation and continues and shows its timelessness and its ability to survive. And then it's something where we have to, be humble and then, ask permission for somebody to come in and say, hey, we don't have this anymore. Could you please teach us? And it takes a lot of relationship building and rapport to get somebody from the outside to teach you. And I hope that we don't have to do that with weaving, for instance, or traditional medicine. What if we lost these two things, and then later on we have to go to Kiribati or New Caledonia or Fiji and say, oh, can you teach us how to do traditional medicine? We lost it. And it saddens me. It saddens me because we still have people that are doing it. But it almost feels like nobody's interested to learn.
Do you have an apprentice?
I have 6.
That's good.
One's actually in Hawaii, and we do distance learning through Zoom, and I've met him in person once for a week. And I have done my part. I feel like I've done my part to pass it on to several people, more than several, that were interested and motivated to learn this very laborious pandanus weaving. Yes.
Thank you so much for what you do, really, and sharing your knowledge, and for your time today. Any final thoughts before we go?
It's a very important skill. I'm not saying everybody has to weave, right? Because there's other things that you could do to help carry us forward. I feel like if we lose all these things, it would be kind of sad, because we have the people that can do it now. And it would be better if we didn't refer back in 20 years or 50 years or 100 years, refer back to this antiquated ancient DVD or flash drive, because it's not that technology anymore. And then we go, this is how they used to do it. This is how they used to do it. This is he's not with us anymore, but this is the last pandanus weaver, or this is the last zo'amti. and this is how they did it. And we have some of the recipes for this medicine, or we have some of the instructional guides. They called it DIY back then. I don't know what that means, but you know, and I'm being silly all of a sudden, but I think it's important that as we like lunge forward, trying to be modern and trying to chase this like dream or whatever that people have, we could also try and reflect on what we already have and see how amazing it is and how beautiful it is, and how the people from before us were like so creative and ingenious to come up with these things, and to figure out that if you hit a piece of wood a certain way with a shell blade and made a certain geometric shape, and then put a stick in the middle, and then wove leaves a certain way, and put this triangular thing with rope onto a stick, 2 sticks, and then had a paddle or a stick with a wide point, you could travel the ocean.
Yes.
And weaving is not that intense, but it is pretty amazing that Chamorros and the other islanders in the greater Pacific knew geometry, mathematics, and how to manipulate materials, and how to figure out that you can make a 4-sided basket that looks like a square on the bottom with a round top, or you could make an octagon-shaped basket on the bottom and have it turn into a rectangle. There's so many amazing things I've seen with Pacific Island weavers in general, and Chamorro weavers as well. We have copied Western people's hats, because apparently ladies in the Marianas wanted a hat like that lady that came with the Spaniards, and saw the Spaniard guy with his hat, and we took agate leaves and copied that. And then their purses, apparently we didn't have purses like Europeans had purses. We had different baskets, but when we saw those purses, there was some very dubious ladies that said, I want one of them, let me weave it. And they made their own designs and patterns and moderned it after Western style hats, European style hats, and European style bags. And then the rest is history. We now make covers for little can coolers like this, and we make these things that people have vapes, and there's some artists that I've seen have woven around these, just random things that are very contemporary and not what the ancestors were doing, but it's a testament to the longevity of this skill, and some people are advancing it forward. Yeah.
Thank you again.
Oh, Sidus Masi, thank you for having me today. Yeah.
And maybe we can chat more next time about what it is you do, because this isn't the only thing you do to help promote the culture. But thank you, James.
Thank you very much, Sidus Masi.
Our guest today has been James Bamba, one of the best-known modern indigenous Chamorro weavers here in the Marianas. This has been your Humanities Half Hour. I'm Catherine Perry.
Your Humanities Half Hour has been made possible in part by a major grant from the National Endowment for the Humanities. Democracy demands wisdom. Any views, findings, conclusions, or recommendations expressed in this program do not necessarily represent those of the National Endowment for the Humanities. For more information or to share your thoughts, contact the Northern Marianas Humanities Council at nmhcouncil.org or on social media at 670 Humanities. That's 670 Humanities.